So I want to go ahead and break down this entire situation that I got going on. And the reason that anyone speaking on my situation is going to want to stop speaking on my situation before they get drug into a situation that is so much bigger than them that they will never, throughout the entirety of their life, be able to recover if it is not handled properly. While simultaneously, the person that is capable of being able to handle it properly is being restricted in ways that legally they should not be being restricted. Alright? So, people wanted to have me deemed incompetent, make a joke of it, alright? A joke that local law enforcement wanted to be a part of. Well, breaching numerous of my constitutional rights. I go ahead and I demonstrate for my dissertation a particle physics equation that I had finally gotten right. We are talking gotten right to the point where now it is starting to gain a little traction online. Alright? So, on my other YouTube account, the first time that I demonstrated that was in January of 2023. Alright? Well, everybody was claiming that I was having a mental breakdown. Alright? 2 months later, my same theory, my same equation, ends up getting used for the main plot line for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Alright? So, now you have local law enforcement hoping that they could go ahead and, try to contain the inevitable scandal. Well, simultaneously, the inevitable scandal is now uncontainable because, now quite literally that same theory has now been used by Sony Pictures. Alright? So now, law enforcement want to act like, what are you gonna do? We are the law. We get to do whatever the fuck we want, even if not constitutionally right or legal. We get to do whatever the fuck we want because you're in our jurisdiction. Sony is not in your jurisdiction. And understand something. They got $1 million for every dollar that your precinct has. Alright? And ultimately, Ghostbusters is one of their main franchises. Alright? And we're talking, that specific movie, by the way, it's not just Sony. It's Sony and Warner Brothers. Alright? So you got two different powerhouses of, production companies. Both having one of their main franchises now tied in with the same theory, the same equation that I quite literally had made and showed and demonstrated that everybody mocked was like, oh, so you demonstrated what was a Nobel Prize winning theory back in the 60s or 70s? Like, how does that make you that smart? Well, the person that won that Nobel Prize, they were not able to demonstrate it. They quite literally were like, I'm going to explain it, and you have to take my word for it. And won a Nobel Prize for physics, Well, for me, I said, hold my beer. Demonstrated it. Ended up getting mocked about it because, I ended up proving that what we thought were the laws of physics are really more like the suggestions of physics. Alright? So now, you have Sony having to, and Warner Brothers both having to worry about the way that it's going to look of being like, oh, so you ended up taking somebody's dissertation, utilizing it for one of the main plot points of one of your movies, didn't credit them. And the reason that you were able to get away with it was because local law enforcement ended up, literally breaching numerous civil rights laws. So you ended up capitalizing on that opportunity by going ahead and being like, well, you're immobilized for the time being, so we're going to strike while the iron's hot, and then worry about the legal discourse later. Now, I want to go ahead and clarify something, right? Ultimately, there are two factors that put Sony in line, or really three factors, that put Sony in line for a better to ask for forgiveness than permission situation, right? Those three factors are, number one, they didn't know this, but I've been a lifetime fan of the entire Ghostbusters franchise. Which, keep in mind, that also means that I would have loved to have been part of the production. I would have loved to demonstrate my equation, for all of the staff. I would love to be part of the franchise. All right? My calculations are part of the franchise, but I am myself not part of the franchise, even if I actually can technically put it in my resume of being like, hey, my dissertation, for, the doctors that I was going for in physics, or that I ended up realizing I could go for in physics, yeah, that ended up getting used for, one of the new Ghostbusters movies, so... And that's actually a credible resume addition. All right. Technically, it's really not too late. They left it off, on where there's opportunity to make another movie based on, the stone tablets showing there being 4 Fire Masters and there only being 1 in that movie. So, I'm just saying, quite literally could end up being the start of a Ghostbusters spinoff. But, second thing, if you go and you look on the website, because I wasn't able to find any contact info, I went on the site to go look for contact info, and I saw something that I really liked. Like, I really liked it. Like, this was enough to be like, all right, you know what? This is enough for me where, rather than, having a fight for my piece of the pie, I'd be willing to be like, all right, you know what? So they could get some of their legal team, which, by the way, their legal team, petty as fuck. All right? Like, pretty much some of the most vicious lawyers that you will ever have to go up against. So I can tell you right now, Sony's legal team is that legal team you don't even want to have to end up showing up in front of a judge in your jurisdiction. Like, they will go ahead and expose everything that's ever been rug swept in that jurisdiction, bring that shit to the surface, go ahead and turn that shit into a documentary, and just absolutely blast the entire neighborhood to the point where it ends up causing an economic crisis. Like, they don't play around. But when I went on the site, I ended up seeing that they had a fundraiser, all right, for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, all right, and their goal was to raise $250,000 for St. Jude's, and they have almost doubled that goal, all right. So the factor that one of their main franchises actually believes in being able to give back, because I mean the amount of kids basically that end up going ahead and liking that franchise too. especially if they had parents that were pretty much raised on Ghostbusters. That right there ends up being just a giant green flag in my book. It's like, all right, there are so many corporations, there are so many different production companies and everything that end up being predatory in nature. They'll do whatever they can to be able to pick somebody, like at their weakest and everything, and try to just exploit the ever loving fuck out of them. In case of Ghostbusters, my situation very much can be a scandal that would end up getting attached right to their main, franchise. But they're raising money to be able to help St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So that way that, those kids could be able to get free medical treatment. That quite literally is almost a win all around. The fact that they actually support a cause that I believe in. And the third thing I mentioned was, Sony's legal team being just petty as all hell. Like, the factor that I ended up getting screwed over with that movie, The New Guy. All right? Imagine one of the most publicly humiliating situations that I've ever experienced, endured, and survived ended up being made into a movie. But the movie ended up going ahead and changing some factors. Like, for example, they made the plot line, in a high school. All right? In my circumstance, the whole, dick broken by a librarian thing, that whole thing, the public humiliation was in junior high. Quite literally getting my pants pulled down right in front of the entire school. Like, last bell, last day. Literally, everything bared for the entire school. So being humiliated out of my mainstream district. Which the school is still trying to figure out a way to separate themselves from that situation without having to go ahead and look discriminatory in nature for targeting me, because of me between that event as well as, when I was supposed to go to summer school, the air conditioner wasn't working and me clarifying, hey, so you need to go ahead and shut down summer school for all of us because if your air conditioning isn't working in here but you want us to be in these trailers and you're saying that the heat should be a punishment, that would be considered child endangerment. Like, you do understand, like, technically we could go ahead and just have the school shut the fuck down, right? They didn't like that. Because I pointed out, like, technically, any of our, parental units could go ahead and go to court and just sue the fuck out of you. And that's free money falling into their pocket. And if that money's falling into their pocket, some of it's going to get used on us if we, we're the ones who ended up causing that money to fall into their pocket. So please give me a fucking reason. They didn't appreciate that much because of the factor that I was right. And they didn't like that I was right. Anybody that could get held for anything liability-wise, like, for example, where I used to live, as well as, people I used to work for, imagine quite literally being in the position to go ahead and, set up a wrongful eviction lawsuit, as well as a wrongful termination lawsuit, as well as theft of services lawsuit, as well as a tortious interference lawsuit, as well as defamation by hearsay. There are quite a few people that if I wanted to right now, I could drag to court and just have my pockets filled up. But I'm trying to figure out an overall solution because the problems that ended up getting presented to me were not problems of my own making. They were problems of other people's making that wanted to go ahead and try to think that they had any type of control over my future trajectory. Which, by the way, going ahead and, falsely claiming that I was drunk driving when I wasn't, and, using that as a basis to try to get my license suspended, you know, that right there, that right there is pretty fucked, especially considering the fact that when that accident ended up happening, someone decided to take that security footage, put it online, and throw some sound effects between Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. So, can't act like, that footage isn't just out there for the entirety of the internet to see what actually happened, and that I wasn't lying when I said I got hit going, with the person going 70 and a 30. I was just literally trying to go to the store to go get toilet paper. But that being said, all right, when it comes to Sony, the easiest solution that there is basically being like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm the person whose theory ended up being the inspiration for your character, the Flame Master. Just wanted to go ahead and see what could get figured out as far as paperwork, as far as the formality goes, because, I've been putting my demonstrations online. They're starting to gain traction and everything, and people are going to eventually put the two and two together in their mind. So, and considering the circumstances that I have in front of me, which makes law enforcement look really fucking bad, which makes the entire fucking local, politicians look like absolute fucking crooks and risk all of their closet skeletons just popping right the fuck out. Not to mention that medical malpractice from the hospital, that right there, huge exposure risk, for that insurance fraud, multi-level marketing scheme. So, the oppression of civil liberties, basically there's going to be quite a few institutions or entities that have a larger than most financial capacity being right in the line of fire. All right. It would be easiest to find a comparable middle ground for all parties involved. Because the amount of people too that have went to go imply, like referencing me while simultaneously this is going on. I'm just saying, people that wanted to go ahead and control my future trajectory and mobility and everything like that. It's like, okay, so you wanted to prevent me from getting any opportunities, yet meantime, Ghostbusters happened. And with Ghostbusters, at least it was like, hey, so not like you could really be a part of it, what you're having to deal with, because other people want to try to make your life difficult, but we can make your equation a part of the movie. Okay. But I need to go ahead and get everything just organized as far as public acknowledgement that this situation doesn't end up going in a very litigation happy direction, which it has all capability of doing. So just help with the legal installation, because, I'm really tired of having to constantly fight that uphill battle on my own, and I understand representing myself means, no assistance from anyone else. But then when I actually end up going ahead and learning the material inside and out, apparently I did something wrong by, learning the fucking law. So, point that I'm making on that is just there are people that are wanting to opportunistically throw themselves into the situation that have no business being in the situation and really need to remove themselves because it's not, hey, watch out for that tree. It's, hey, watch out for that ballistic missile that is pretty much directly locked onto you. Because you wouldn't just, drop the fucking tank